Wow.
Welcome, everyone, to the inaugural episode of our new series, Religare Music. My name is Stuart Nelson, and I serve as the Vice President at the Institute for Spirituality and Health. Our mission at ISH is to enhance well-being by exploring the relationship between spirituality and health, and we accomplish this through various educational, research, and direct service programs. You can learn more about ISH at spiritualityandhealth.org. Before we go much further, I'd like to acknowledge our ASL interpreter, Alan Farnham, from Nightingale Interpretive Services. Thank you for being here, Alan. In addition, I am joined this evening by Carleen Graham, Director of HGO Co., Houston Grand Opera's Community and Learning Initiative. Hi, Carleen.
Hey, Stuart. It's so nice to be here. I'm Carleen Graham, as Stuart said, Director of HGO Co., and we are Houston Grand Opera's Community and Learning Initiative. And Stuart, our introductory performance that you just saw was by Kaminari Taiko, and we will hear more about them and their practice later in the program. Stuart, we were talking when we were in planning for this, that this has been a project that we've been planning for quite a while. And so I am so appreciative of HGO's ongoing partnership with Institute for Spirituality and Health, especially through our Seeking the Human Spirit initiative. And this initiative is a 6-year multidisciplinary initiative designed to highlight universal spiritual themes raised in opera and to expand and deepen Houstonians' connections to opera and art.
Well, we're really pleased also to be part of this initiative, Carleen. Our friendship goes back several years, and we've seen some great collaborations, and this has been no exception. I've really enjoyed the time we've spent, so thank you and to the HGO team. Religare Music, as you know, is part of a wider series at ISH that explores some of the essential building blocks of cultural and religious traditions. By considering some of the similarities and meaningful differences between diverse expressions of religion and spirituality, we're able to tap into a deeper understanding of ourselves, others, and that which is greater than us all. So religare, or to bind fast, or to bind again in Latin, is considered by some scholars to be the root word for religion. We considered it an appropriate title for this series as we explore the things that bind our traditions together, things like ritual and prayer and food and architecture and so many more. Of course, Religare Music delves into the reason we're all here tonight, which is the rich musical traditions that have inspired and communicated the most profound aspects of human experience across millennia. We all have stories of powerful experiences listening to music, perhaps in joy, sometimes in sorrow. And for those of us who create music, which really is all of us, we know the unique power it has to transmit healing and energy. At ISH, we frequently use a relational definition for spirituality. Spirituality as our innate ability to connect with others, to connect to our environment and the creatures we share this world with, to connect to the transcendent mystery that many of us call God and that others choose not to name, simply standing in awe of the universe. And ultimately, our innate ability to connect with our truest, deepest self. So we hope this series is a connective one. For music, or as my friend and colleague Cyrus Worlds reminds us, the language of the emotions is surely one of the most powerful connective agents there is. Whether we're in a cathedral, bathed in the tones of a choir, or a temple, absorbed in a meditative chant, or in our favorite local venue, listening to some good Houston hip hop. The power of music binds us to each other and to that which is most meaningful. So we're limited in our time, but hopefully through this series, the audience experiences a tradition and a sound that's different from their own.
And so through the components of music over the next 5 weeks, we will look at these practices through the lens of tonight, rhythm, melody, harmony, lyrics, and silence. And so you may begin to see connections between cultures and spiritual traditions where none might have been present for you before. Today, though, we get to focus on rhythm. And to give us some context around the first piece you saw tonight, I want to bring on from the group Kaminari Taiko. Please welcome Natalie Hudson, their artistic director. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Carlene. Thanks, Carlene and Stuart, for having us on. I'm really excited to be here and discuss with everyone. Taiko is an art form that originated in Japan. The word taiko means drum in Japanese, and these drums have been built and played in Japan for well over 1,000 years. If you've seen taiko in person, you know that the sound of the taiko is resonant and loud, and it can be heard over a long distance. So the historical uses have included in religious ceremonies, for communication, and at festivals. The taiko has a wide range of expressive ability. It can be really somber, it can be really joyful, lots of things in between. The form of taiko that we study and practice and perform at Kaminari Taiko is actually relatively modern compared to the long history of taiko in Japan. For a long time, taiko were only played basically one drum and one performer at a time. But in the 1950s, a jazz drummer named Daihachi Oguchi rearranged some traditional taiko music for an ensemble of several performers and different drums of different sizes and tones. And he created the style of kumidaiko, or ensemble taiko. And in the last 70 years, that style has spread around the world. There are now thousands of taiko groups all around the world performing this style, and many different variations on it. And that's the style that we perform and study. Kaminari Taiko itself was founded here in Houston 25 years ago by Mr. Jay Mochizuki, along with several other talented musicians. And we study and practice and teach taiko classes for everyone who wants to play taiko at our dojo in Cyprus. We perform on stage at concerts. We travel to a lot of festivals, especially Japanese festivals and cultural festivals. We also do educational programs and outreach and things like that. The video clips we saw at the top of the program, the first set of clips was just a whirlwind tour of some of the styles of taiko that we study and perform. You can see there are a lot of different types of drums, a lot of different ways to play them. Taiko is a very physical art form, so you use your whole body to strike the drum and produce the sound. There are many other ways to play taiko than what you've seen there. And the longer clip at the end was from an excerpt from a piece called Fujin, composed by our former artistic director, Nick Hill. Fujin is the god of wind in Japanese mythology. So that piece focused on evoking all the different natures of the wind, from very quiet whispering wind to a loud, intense wind. And this connection to nature and to mythology is a fairly common theme in taiko music. But as you can imagine, with thousands of groups all around the world, there are lots of different varieties and takes on what taiko can be. So it's a really diverse community, and we're really excited and inspired to be a part of that taiko community.
Oh, that's so interesting. This is really, really rich. And Natalie, could you tell us a little bit about what does this practice bring to you spiritually? What do you derive, and what do you receive from being part of this practice?
For me, it's about two things, I would say. First, the whole body experience, because it's so physical and it's really demanding, and there's the music and the movement and the rhythm and the drum and all of that. It's something that takes all of your focus, and so it really allows you and requires you to leave everything else behind. And when you're in the dojo, when you're on stage, when you're playing taiko, you are there 100% in that moment. And that's a really valuable thing for me. And the other aspect of it that is meaningful to me is the community aspect of it. Taiko is not really a solo type of performance, especially the way that we practice it. It's really about the ensemble. There's no conductor, there's no leader. It's all about the collective and listening to each other and creating the sound together. So that's something that I really appreciate and find really moving and powerful.
That ensemble, that sense of community is powerful, and especially in times like these that we're in, I think is so important. I do have one question too. As being from an opera company, I'm always obsessed when I hear vocalizations, and so you hear vocalizations in the performances. Can you share a little bit about what that is and what the significance is?
Absolutely, yes. And yeah, you're very keen to pick up on that, because the vocalization, in addition to the movement and the sound, is a key part of Taiko practice and performance. There are a couple of different kinds. There's a kiai, which is similar to what you would see in martial arts, where it's just like a really loud, like, aha, just an expression of your energy that you're sharing with your fellow performers and with the audience, and it's just like, give it and you take it and it's just flowing. And then there's also kakegoi, which is not exactly scripted, but it's a little bit more part of the music in kind of a rhythmic sense and a tone sense, where people will interject certain syllables to add to the sound of the drums. So yeah, it's really, really essential to Taiko.
Oh, wonderful. Well, it's just so rich. And I know that you will be, it'll be fascinating to even go down to discuss this even deeper with the group later on. So Natalie, thank you so much. We'll see you back here for the discussion with the whole group shortly. But now I would like to introduce Christina, Gerard, Sila, who's the founding and artistic director of KoumanKe'le African Dance and Drum Ensemble. Welcome, Christina.
Good evening. Thank you, Carlene and Stuart, for having me.
Oh, pleasure, a pleasure. Christina, tell us about your group.
Well, KoumanKe'le African Dance and Drum Ensemble started in 2004, simply because I was learning two different techniques, or two different countries of dance, South African as well as West African, and there was no West African representation here in the city. But we are a cultural performance group, and we present and preserve the African traditions, drum and dance culture of Guinea, South Africa, Mali, and the Congo. And so we teach classes every Sunday for youth as well as for community adults. And our mission is to present and to preserve, of course, African traditions and the culture through quality artistic performances. And we want to reconnect current and future generations to the history and the traditions of the continent. And so we study continually. We are constant students. The piece that you will see from us will definitely be, it's a Congolese piece from the Mongo people of Congo. And I selected that piece for us to present specifically because it has to do with healing.
Great. And I just, before we go into that, can I ask you what, how did you become involved in this practice?
I became involved simply because I didn't really have a choice. My grandmother used to say to us all the time, if you wake up in the morning and you think about words that rhyme, you're a poet. If you wake up in the morning and you think about moving and dancing and expressing your emotions through movement, you're a dancer. So I didn't really have a choice. I started out as a background hip hop dancer, and I aged out of that. I had a child, I gained weight, and I was miserable in not being able to move and not being able to breathe through dance. And so my husband at the time suggested that I go and take a South African dance class that wasn't too far from our house. And my technique was terrible. I thought that I could muscle through it. And I ended up crying in a ball when I got home on the floor, simply because I didn't think that I could do it. And a lady in the class expressed to me, she's actually one of our founding members, Dr. Ariaga Mbonisi. She expressed to me that this was exactly for me, and that it could only be for me. And she took me to Austin, where I met my master, or my teacher, Musa Diabati. He was teaching a class there. And that was really, once I met him and he finally got pronounced my name right, then it was, he's now my dance father. And I continue to share with my children. My husband is actually Guinean. He lives on the continent, so we're able to travel and continue my education, because I'm a forever student. And that's how I started, basically. It's dance and culture saved my life.
I think there's so many of us that have stories where the arts have saved us, as and have given us purpose in life. And thank you for sharing that. That is a really moving story. That's lovely. And could you shared a little bit about this next video, but could you just repeat again quickly about the video, and then we'll take a look at your performance.
Okay, so the rhythm that we're doing is a rhythm called Zebula. And Zebula is from the Mongol people of the Congo. And sometimes when things change and people experience trauma, or they experience something very difficult in life, it can manifest itself in physical ailments. And Zebula is one of those sleepy time rhythms that allows for you to calm and to be at not in a trance, but in a trance-like stasis, in order for you to heal. So, we can take medicine to heal those physical ailments and those physical symptoms that plague us, but there's not a lot that can just heal the trauma and open those doors and allow for us to see clear and be able to get back to a centeredness so that we can move forward. And so this particular rhythm is Zebula.
Oh, thank you. Well, without further ado, let's go right to the performance. Thank you, Christina.
Oh, wow.
Wow, incredible. It's so fun to see a familiar place that I walk and cycle past so often, filled with so much life, and I feel reinvigorated and also healed as well. So thank you to KoumanKe'le and also to Christina for your presence this evening. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to talking to you a little bit later in the program. I'd like now to introduce Tamaktiani Abuela Mapi Rainflower. Thank you so much for being here. You are the leader of the Calmecac Indigenous Arts Organization, and just likewise so grateful for your presence with us this evening. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you for inviting us to be a part of this.
Sure, of course.
So my name is Abuela Mapi Rainflower. It's a translation from the two words in our Aztec language called Nahuatl, which was one of the languages prior to Spanish colonization in Mexico. The translation comes from rain and flower. Giawitl is rain. Xochitl is flower. So I translate things into English to make it a little more digestible for people. My children and I actually started the Calmecac back in 2014, and then we marked our first year coming in 2015. But we started in the traditions in 1998, and we've followed teachers, elders, guides, and different forms of our practice. Our spiritual practice is actually our ways of life. And so we do various dances that include our drums, and our drums are called huehuets. It's the voice of the ancestors. There's no direct translation sometimes into English or Spanish words for Nahuatl words because our people spoke in a poetic form, inclusive of us not even having a word for music. Everything we developed for ourselves was a form of art. The way we spoke, the way we held ourselves in public, the way we took care of our instruments, and the way we expressed ourselves through playing them was all considered an art form. So the Calmecac is now an open community-based circle for people to learn what we call post-Huatemoc, but some people consider pre-Hispanic as the proper term. And basically we're taking the ancient ceremony and science of Mesoamerica from the Central Valley of Mexico by way of the teachers that have brought it to the forefront. Majority of these teachings have to be protected family to family because there was still a lot of denial about the roots of the indigenous portion of Mexico. A lot of people may have been influenced by a colonistic mindset that your skin being lighter, you were a better person. These things were looked down upon or frowned upon. If you were a poor native, pobre indio, they would call us. And so Texas once being Mexico, of course, and that all of our root is Mexican-based here as Tex-Mex or Tejanos. I'm 7th generation Texan. I'm actually Southern Plains, Huahuitecan descent, which is where my name Mapi comes from. It's a shortened phrase. But I've had to trace our family roots through the ceremonies. So we're an actual ceremonial group, a traditional group, but we have become at a space now 18, almost 20 years later, to be able to present to the public. And that includes the ability to be able to teach. I've been given the palabra, the word, from different teachers and elders to be able to carry these traditions. And so we've opened these circles now to various people, not just even in Houston, but all over. We've done work from here to California and in Mexico City and back.
Well, what a tremendous offering and creation and transmission. It really struck me when you said that this has been transmitted, and you're obviously a part of that for us right now, and I'm so grateful for that. So I think there's a video too that's been prepared, so let's take a look at that.
Thank you. Thank you.
This now is a complete offering to our ancestors who were all mutilated during wars on these lands that we call home. All of these steps, all of these motions, everything that we are making offerings is in the remembrance of each and one of the generations that we come from, the people who had to become enslaved and colonized to survive. all the way to the ones who fought, all the way to the ones whose blood is now integrated into the root system of these trees, into the foundation of these buildings. That is what the purpose of this circle that we are making today stands for. Amateo. Woo, woo!
Oh, I can't hear you. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Forgive me. I was saying that thank you, and I just feel so honored to be able to witness that this evening. I found myself reflecting on what you said earlier about how the expression mirrors as an interwoven with the movements and sounds of just daily life. And I really appreciated that. I'm wondering, can you maybe go into a little bit more of the context behind what we just observed?
Yes, and I apologize I didn't do that prior. The first set was from Indigenous Peoples Day. We worked for 7 years as a community to ask for the removal of the Columbus statue because Houston was still one of the cities that had one, and we had to work with the city council. The first person was Carla Cisneros, and then Robert Gallegos ended up working with us it was a 7-year span, and we finally got a chance to get city council to vote on it. But due to COVID, we weren't able to open it to more than just a few people to receive the proclamation. So that was actually the proclamation of the first Indigenous Peoples Day in Houston. Then the second part was from a naming ceremony of a child. We do something called Siembra de Nombre. In the Mexica tradition, because the original word for Azteca was Mexica. We have been renamed several times as Indigenous people here on our own lands, right? So the Mexica tradition of Siembra de Nombre, planting of a name, is given 4 times in our lives. Once a child is born, another time at coming of age, another time when they transition into becoming an adult, and then as an elder. So this was the child's naming ceremony. And then you also saw footage. We were doing a memorial ceremony for an elder. One of my teachers passed away, and he was originally from Tacuba, which is where our teachers came from, Tacuba, Mexico, by way of the West Coast. And the style that we do is called Danza Azteca or Danza Mexica Esplendor. It was the original form broken away from the influence of the church. And we were allowed to come out in public in our regalia. And so everything that we do, again, being transcribed through our hearts and towards one another in the circle, is bound by the drum, the heartbeat of Mother Earth. It's essential of all the colors of the original people of the earth. And so we know that we're connected through that heartbeat. We say one mind, one heart, one spirit. That's been Native American teachings across all tribes throughout Turtle Island. And so we continue with that tradition. And so we don't charge for our classes we give at the parks. We have a cooperation with the Houston Parks and Recs to allow us to come sometimes indoors when the buildings open again, but mainly outdoors, especially now for social distancing. So everything we do is community-based and grassroots. We're not funded by anything. We don't charge our students, because once that exchange occurs spiritually, we feel like it takes the spirit away, and the person is unable to heal themselves through this process of understanding what it means to carry the elements.
Well, I'm tremendously interested. I wish we could sit in here and talk for hours and hours. I have so many questions, some of which we'll be able to get to in a little bit after we hear from our next speaker. Thank you. I feel the energy. I feel the passion. I feel just the power of your presence here. And I'm really humbled. Thank you.
Wow, Stuart, we're in sacred space when we share space with that type of music making and spiritual community, and it's a very profound experience. It really, really is. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Even virtually, it still comes right through. We're going to shift just a bit to provide some more basic context into rhythm. And so I'm really excited to introduce to you Avner Dorman, who is a composer and associate professor of music theory and composition at the Sunderman Conservatory of Music at Gettysburg College. And so Avner, welcome.
Hi, Carlene.
It's nice to see you again, and I have to start by saying, Avner, HGO has collaborated with Avner, and again on our Star-Crossed web series, where he composed 2 of the 3 episodes. And Avner, as an accomplished composer in the classical style, can you share with us a little bit in the audience about the significance of rhythm in music, and perhaps even in your own compositions?
Yeah, I have to say it's very much connected to everything we've heard today, and I kind of want to read something. So I think it might be even more significant. So I want to read the first paragraph of the program note that I wrote for the piece that we're going to listen to. It's called Eternal Rhythm, and I'm reading it. Rhythm is perhaps the most fundamental aspect of music. In fact, the basic properties of rhythm express the essential signs of life. Without a pulse, we cannot live. Without pulsation and repetitive motion, the physical world cannot exist. So I listening to the people before me, I feel like that is very much vindicated. That this is the most universal aspect of music and of life. I know you're going to move on to melody and harmony and other aspects of music, but really nothing can exist before rhythm. And I've always felt that way, sort of on a philosophical and spiritual level. Practically, it's been a huge part of my music making, because a lot of the music that I write is for percussion, and even when it's not for percussion, it's quite percussive. And so, as you know, one of the operas I wrote for you is mostly with percussion, and the other one is not, but still mostly percussion. And I feel like that's a place where people connect. That's a place where I can understand myself and music and the passage of time only through rhythm. And I think it's something that is quite universal. And yeah, we can't have a melody without rhythm. We can't have a single note without frequency. So it really is the most basic element of life and sound and music for me, and throughout the ages, I believe. And maybe I'll say a couple more words about the piece we're going to hear. It's called Eternal Rhythm. It's called Eternal Rhythm, and what we'll hear is about 1.5 minutes of just the percussion part. The piece is a percussion concerto. So if you've ever gone to the symphony and heard a violin concerto or a piano concerto, in this case, there's a lot of percussion in front of the orchestra, and one person goes around and plays all these percussion instruments as the leader of the artistic experience. The piece itself is about 25 minutes long, and it's very unusual for an orchestra to have all the percussion in the front and all the the other orchestral instruments in the back. In this case, we'll hear Cynthia Ye, the principal percussionist of Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And this video is actually her practicing the piece on stage before they had the first rehearsal with the orchestra. So it's just her, like, not in her studio, trying it out on stage. And I think one of the other things I really love about percussion is the possibilities are really limitless. So you might notice that some of the drums are orchestral drums, some of them are sort of more rock-oriented, maybe jazz-oriented drums, and some of them are just pots and pans that she brought from home at my request. Wow. So rhythm is pretty open-ended.
Oh, wow. Well, without further ado, let's go right to the performance.
So welcome back, everyone. And really enjoyed watching and hearing all of your music making. It was really, really fantastic and deeply touching and moving. And I wanted to ask you about how this practice, how this kind of performance is learned. How is it passed on from generation to generation? How does each of these traditions get passed on? So, and you can feel free to take it.
I can. So the traditions are passed on orally. So we don't, as far as African culture, we have to keep in mind, it's 54 different countries. It's not one place. And so basically each one teach one. So we have a person or an entity that is called a jelly. And that individual is responsible for keeping the history of each village or each family name. And that information is passed down orally. They take young children and teach them the way of the drum, because that is, the drum has a language all of its own. And so the drummers specifically learn that language, and then dancers learn the other side of the conversation. So in my case, it's a little more, a few more steps in there, simply because I am an African born in America. And it's very difficult for me to trace my ancestry and find out who I am or where I come from. So in that particular instance, we have continental Africans who are here in the United States, and we host conferences where we all come together across the country and we learn from those continental Africans. So I have, my mother is from the Congo and my father is from Guinea, and I have an uncle from Ghana and a brother that is from South Africa, and so on and so forth. And so my company shares and preserves these different cultures, because I could be from anywhere based on my heritage. And so we share what we learn. And the same thing happens for my children, which I call the people who are in my company, although they're adults, but they're still my children. They're my sons and my daughters and my brothers and sisters.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and taiko is similarly an oral tradition. The pieces are passed down by singing. It's almost never written down. There's a system called kuchishoga that is a system of syllables for the different types of drum hits on different parts of the drum, hitting the drum different ways. And the way that you sing it, you sing with the voice of the drum, essentially. And it's really key to passing it down. So you'll sing, tondoko, 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 tokonko. And that's helps you learn it. And it's also a way of passing down all the nuance of each piece.
Oh.
And it's similar in our tradition as well. Our dance was actually protected generationally. They call them heredencias, like you inherit it from parent to child or grandparents to grandchildren. The structure of our dance is like a militarization structure. So your grandfather could be the general and your parents could be the captains, and then you would be next in line to receive it. And because again of the colonization that occurred, our ancestors were not allowed to play our drums with our hands, which is what originally we were allowed. The Spaniards used to chop our limbs off if they caught us. There was a lot of confusion what those drums were doing, calling the people together, calling the spirits of our land, the guardians. We were paying homage. So there was a lot of confusion from the Spaniards when they first came into contact with all of the various tribes from Mexico. So the concha, a guitar instrument, a sophisticated Spanish instrument, was introduced to the dance after colonization. And so our ancestors, they used to hit the instruments the same way. So they would hit these guitars and string at the same time and then dance. And that's where the formation of the dance now became into the conchero tradition. And with time, people are taking different variations and bringing the drums back. Now we play with sticks, when that wasn't done by our ancestors prior. They played with their hands, but still we're still in this colonization assimilation process. So our children, it's vital that we teach them the ways, but now, because we don't have to be so enclosed in our own homes, persecuted for practicing our old ways, and we have the rights to do this even in public now and teach others. We can be inclusive of everyone on the medicine wheel. We can be inclusive to the importance of protecting Indigenous, not just identity, but teachings for all of our future survival. So it's something that we take very seriously when we take relationships with each other. I have tons of uncles and aunties and moms and dads as well across the continent. I also have adopted other people that are not one of my 3 children, and I call them my children. We also develop that relationship with each and every one of our dance students.
Right.
We are their parent, and irregardless of their age. So I have children that are 2 years old to 70 years old, because I'm guiding them on this spiritual path. I am like their madrina, their mother, or their godmother, in a sense. So it's very important that we protect that oral knowledge and that face-to-face learning, which is very difficult in this day and with these generations, because they want to record everything. They want to watch it on YouTube. They want to just read it in a book. But our ancestors didn't even have a writing format. We did everything expressive. We believed in teaching face-to-face. And that's even something that we have to look at in regards to the way our children learn in this colonized educational system. So it's part of the teaching artist residency that I'm a part of with young audiences in developing Indigenous curriculum, because it's vital for children to be able to absorb the information in different formats with their senses.
Oh, that's really beautiful. So I have a question here from the chat. If you would be willing to share how these practices are part of or enhance your spiritual life, how these sort of musical elements are integrated or enhanced, or maybe they're one and the same. So whoever wants to take that.
I'll go again.
I was counting on you, Christina.
I got you. So for me, the practice is my church. So it is the connection that I have with other people, as well as to the drum, as well as to my ancestry and my heritage, as well as to the earth and to the continent of Africa. So it is all the same for me. And it gives me a place, it allows me a space and a place to fly. So I can be here dancing, but I'm also in a different place when the drum is playing and when I am dancing. I can look and see it all, and I can allow for myself to be used or to be that vessel in that moment for one of my ancestors, or for a different message to come across for someone else. And that's how I view it for me.
Thank you. I will just say that even though I'm the one who writes music on notes, on paper, big pieces of paper, and these thick books, it is also my spiritual life. So it's not enhancing. It is what it is.
It is.
It's just amazing to me how similar the experience is. Natalie, I'm sorry if I.
Yeah, no, I was going to say essentially the same thing. I was really feeling what you were saying, Christina. That Taiko is my church. When we still had practice in the before times, there's a ritual to it. We went to the dojo every Sunday for 4 hours, and that's my extended family basically. And it's a place to connect with other people and to really be a part of this musical experience and be part of this community. And yeah.
I don't know, Rain, I don't know if you want to answer the question too, or
yes. So, of course, the earth is our home as Native Americans. We didn't live in buildings. So Native American church is actually our certified true way of practicing as a family, my children and I. And in that way, there's a water drum we use, and they say it creates a holy hum. And in that holy hum, it gives a tonality that's like a hum sound. So when we're able to sing, we're able to guide our voices with those pitches and shoot like arrows into the cosmos, our intentions and our thoughts, which are our prayers. And it comes through with the fire and the smoke. So all of these things that we do, you saw in our video too, the use of the smoke. Native Americans have always used tobacco, copals, sage, rosemary, whatever it is, the plants, medicines of the earth, to send our voices, they say, the voices to our ancestors and to the cosmos and to directly back to source.
I'm wondering if I could jump in with a question here that I've kind of been trying to formulate. As an amateur musician, sometimes I feel like the process of music involves learning something. And then other times it feels like it's better to forget things that I've learned and kind of strip things away. So there's this interesting thing happening where part of it is learning and part of it is forgetting. But then sometimes it's neither. It feels like just being or in kind of like a flow or like you're suspended. And I'm wondering if you, as well as our other panelists here, can reflect on that state of sort of just like being in the moment during these, whether it's composing or dancing or playing or teaching. Is that an experience that y'all share, this kind of state of flow or the state of being suspended in the experience?
Yes,
For us personally, that's like, yeah. That's the purpose, right? We even fast and don't drink so much water sometimes so that we can get to those states a little quicker. Sometimes there is use of ceremonial medicines. It just depends. But the exertion that we're doing physically, the fasting that we're doing, all these things bring us closer to what we say, closer to spirit or closer to God, closer to death even, really, to be honest, physically. Like my doctor tells me the things I do is humanly impossible, she tells me. But we are still here. We're still here. So that state is the ecstatic state of being one with spirit, one with the voices of our ancestors. And when you are metaphysically in these circles, because we do our dance circular, you're actually exchanging that energy by way of the drum to each of the dancers, through our feathers, through our bare feet hitting the ground. And we are kinetically exchanging energy constantly. So our bodies become a vessel. It's a little more difficult for people that are disconnected from understanding that to actually get in the flow with us, and they just see us as like, oh, this is a workout, or this is really hard. But to be a traditional spiritual dancer, you really have to let go of everything you think you know from school and churches and things that you've been taught in order to really understand what it means to be one with the fire, to be one with the water, to be one with the wind, to be one with the earth.
Thank you. So powerful.
Yeah, I would say similarly, the flow is the goal. The flow is it. That's when you are in that space and with other people and you're all feeling the rhythm in the space you're in and with the people you're with and in the moment that you are in. That is, for me, like one of the goals, the goal of playing taiko. In taiko, we also talk a lot about the concept of having a beginner's mind always, when you're a beginner, and also when you've been playing taiko your whole life, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, you always have a beginner's mind. Every time you play, every new person you meet, every time you step into the dojo, you're taking things in and you're ready to learn something new. And that's how you keep growing and keep the art alive in you.
Yeah, it's the sweet spot. So when everyone in the room or everyone in the area, we're all in sync, and it is that even exchange. It's that conversation between the drummer and the dancer's feet, and the dancer's feet with the earth, and with everyone in the room with the universe. It's all the same thing. So each of those, maintaining your classical or your training, as well as forgetting all of your training, as well as just being present and releasing yourself, so that the music can engulf you and just take you and carry you and hold you in that moment. It's all the same thing. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, and I think I can echo what everyone said, even though I work on my own. There's no one else in the room. And it is that moment, and it is that flow, and it is those spans of time that are the true creative times. And yeah, I think it is that. I think it is where the ability of the mind, of the universe, of the whole is so much higher, is so much greater than what we can be aware of as conscious selves. So like there's that moment where you're not the conscious self anymore, and that's when music actually comes. And whatever you had to do to get there, whether it's to learn one tradition or another, if you had to practice a lot of Chopin, or sing the taiko rhythms, in the end, I think it's that moment where there's more than the person. And I completely agree, and I love your idea of forgetting, because I think, again, that's one of the things that rhythm is so powerful, is that we can kind of forget some of the cultural heaviness, perhaps, that some traditions bring with them. For example, when you're writing for a symphony orchestra, and it can kind of bring like a new energy and a new light and a new type of music into it.
Thanks. I have a question, and it may be our final question of the evening. We focused a lot on our own work, and I appreciate everyone's great explanations and elaborations. I'm curious what surprised each of you about the others' work this evening. What stood out to you or surprised you about what you heard from the others?
I'll say that I haven't had the opportunity to experience either of y'all's art forms or any of y'all's art forms in person. I hope to someday, but watching them, somehow they felt familiar. I think the rhythm is so deep. It goes back to our heartbeat. It goes back to walking. It goes back to everything that we all have in common as humans. And I feel like I recognized, even though I don't understand all the nuances of what you're doing, I recognized some of that feeling and that connection and that, just a feeling of being in a space like that and hearing those rhythms and moving with the group. And that was really cool. And the clothes are great. I love the clothes and how they move. They're amazing.
I don't think I was surprised per se. I saw more similarity with the root of it all. And I thought it was beautiful to see different types of people doing different types of traditional dance. It's very important for us to share at this time. And so it was nice to see the variety, but there's still that interconnectedness, the root of the drum, the root of us maintaining the old ways and the traditions.
Yeah, I didn't expect to see or to be surprised, simply because it was about rhythm. It was about the drum, and the drum is going to be that heartbeat regardless. It's either going to beat faster or it's going to beat slower, but it's still that same heartbeat. So I wasn't too surprised, but I definitely did notice the connection and the similarities. I've actually been with Rain. I've been at some of your ceremonies, as well as we've performed together before. So I was definitely intrigued by the taiko drum, but again, it's that same heartbeat, that same connection to each other and to just the energy of the universe.
And it's interesting you say that, because we've been on stage with the taiko drummers in the past also. So
That's true. I remember. I do remember.
Yeah.
Twice over probably the last 15 years. I remember you guys are awesome.
There was, was there one at Miller Outdoor Theater? Was there like a big? Yes. Okay. I remember.
Yes,
I do remember that. That was
also
really cool.
At Discovery Green a couple years back.
Discovery Green.
Oh, awesome.
And for us, it was East End Street Festival, and then Baba Abubaka's memorial. Yes.
Oh, Mateo. Yes.
So this is a big love fest. I'm glad that everyone's and Avner, I wonder if kind of in closing, if you have any sort of reflections on the evening, and if you could kind of bring it home for us.
I first of all, I'm really grateful that you invited me, and you and HGO invited me to be part of this evening. I've really enjoyed the music. I mostly want to hear more of it. And I think the thing that maybe surprised me the most is how similar the spiritual and the philosophical side is. That's why I ended up reading that part of my program note, because I didn't expect to hear those exact same words coming out of everyone's mouths. I think the universality of our experience and of rhythm as our experience is even more pronounced in my mind now. It was all very, very powerful music and words, and I'm just very grateful to everyone to having been part of this event.
Well, thank you all, just from the depths of my heart and from the Institute. And hey, Carlene, welcome to the convo. I just so appreciate everyone.
Likewise, it's important for organizations like ours to really help to be good allies and amplify and to help share these important traditions. And we, again, grateful for everyone tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And join us next week on March 9th at 6 p.m. Central Time for our second episode where we'll focus on melody.
And if you enjoyed this evening, please like and share on social media and tell all your friends. These will be recorded so they can catch up on this episode and be ready for the next one, which I just can't wait for. Can't come soon enough.
Absolutely. And for more information about other programming offered by the Institute for Spirituality and Health and HGO, please visit our respective websites at spiritualityandhealth.org and hgo.org.
Thanks again to everyone who made this evening possible, especially our performers and panelists. And we'll see you next week.
Bye. Thank you.